Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Okay, welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me Alara Sage, who is an intuitively guided mentor, womb shaman, and Shakti Activator who coaches provocatively and soulfully. And I love that. She helps men and women heal their sexual trauma, reclaim their creative life force energy, which is Shakti. I know it is Chi, and create exactly what they desire, no matter the obstacles. She believes that we are here to live ecstatically. Yes. She believes that our creative life force energy, Shakti, is the source of our pleasure, aliveness, and profound creative potential. And with that, I am so excited to introduce you because I'm already feeling like we're going to have an awesome conversation. So thank you so much, first and foremost, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I want to ask you tell me a little bit about your journey, because I love that you're using the Shakti life force. I'm drawn to Chinese traditional medicine, so that I use Qi, but it's the same thing. So,
Yes. Yes, it is the same thing. Yes. I mean, I've been on this spiritual journey for a lot longer than I realized I was on it. I mean, I would say my whole life, but there were particular aspects that really happened when I was 19 in 1999. And then again, like in 2005. And in 2013, I had an experience where I was, ironically enough, Sophia, I was working on horses at the time. So I was an equine physical therapist. I did physical therapy to horses, but I was actually doing a lot more energy work and communicating with them and doing all the esoterics. And I got in my car and I was driving down the road, and my higher self came in and said, Om 3 times. Now, at this time in my spiritual journey, I meditated every day, I worked on my chakras, but I didn't Om. I knew what it was, but I was like, okay, higher self, like that's kind of out of the blue. But okay, I'll play the game. And so I took a nice deep breath, and did that 3 times. And at the end of the third Om, an energy shot through my body, out my crown, and I went into a full body orgasm. So driving the car.
wow. Wow.
And I was on a back road. I was driving very slowly. I pulled over. And one thing I like to point out is at that time in my life, I had never had a full body orgasm sexually.
Mhm.
At that time in my life, orgasm sexually was very challenging. I had to concentrate really hard. Everything had to be just okay. It was very mental. Yeah. And so like this like full body orgasm, driving my car was like a totally out of the box experience.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was happening to me. So I just pulled over and was like, wow, like this feels amazing. And a few minutes after it, it started to subside. And I was on cloud nine. I mean, I was just blissed out. I got back on the road, driving down the freeway. I was like, had the music blaring. I was waving at everybody. I was dancing in my car. Um, Needless to say, the horses that I experienced that day got blissed out as well. they, they were loving it.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But I still had no idea what happened to me. And what happened after that was very different. So when the Shakti shot through my body, the Kundalini Shakti, it's a spontaneous awakening, she unleashed a lot of stored emotions, stored energy out of my body.
Mhm.
And so for about 5 months, I was literally all over the place. One minute I would be like raging, just screaming. The next minute, I would be on the ground, crying, grieving so deeply and just intensely in the heart. Next minute, I would be laughing hysterically. And
Oh my goodness.
I literally asked my higher self, am I going crazy? I asked that more than once
Oh
because
yeah.
5 months is a long time. And higher self said, breathe and allow. So, okay, I guess I'm not going crazy. I don't know what kind of answer that was. And I still had no idea what was happening to me. And so after those 5 months, a book came into my awareness called Kundalini Awakening. And that first chapter was all about spontaneous Kundalini awakening.
Mhm,
So that was a pivotal point in my life because what it showed me was that before that experience, I was really numb and I was really shut down and disembodied.
mhm.
And wow, that this was, I was capable of this. I was capable of this full body orgasm. I was capable of this ecstatic bliss. And, it started me on this journey of finding it again because it's not like that was it. Okay, now I'm all blown open and everything is rainbows and butterflies. That was the beginning of my journey, back to the ecstatic self.
That is so fabulous. I I like to say I am grateful that I've had a slow and steady awakening.
Mm.
So I've had moments of like being fully present and losing it. But that's after I learned somatic healing. And so it was like I could just be present with the feeling without getting into the story of it. And that was like really, really healthy for me. But I'm blown away whenever I meet somebody who's had that experience of the full awakening because it's like after all that numbing, which is our societal construct, is like we're taught to numb our feelings and not connect with the body, having that level of reconnection must have been so freaking disorienting because all of a sudden you're aware that you have this and you're in it.
Whoa.
It's like, wait, what is this thing?
Yes, I mean that's why I was literally questioning my sanity, which is a known thing in Kundalini, spontaneous Kundalini awakening is the potential for psychosis. So,
Yeah, it's so fascinating because I actually know a person in Mount Shasta that has had that, and she had it like 15 years ago, and she breaks her bones regularly, and she can't ground herself even though she meditates 6 hours a day because the energy was so intense. So really amazed that you navigated that as well as you did.
hmm. Yeah, and it again, it was just the beginning. I've had clients say to me, "Oh, well, it's been easy for you. You just had a spontaneous awakening." And I'm like, "No, no, no, sweetheart. Again, that was just the beginning.
Right.
Like it wasn't then that I was just deeply connected to my body, deeply connected to my pleasure, open sexually and orgasmically. Like it was the beginning.
Mm,
And what happened with my Shakti is it turned on and I had to learn how to embody it.
mhm,
And I would have these really intense experiences where it would crank up. And I would feel like electricity literally was going through my nervous, like hot wires through my nervous
wow.
system. Or
Okay.
one time I had these constant like waves of Shakti for like 6 hours. And this wave of Shakti would move and my body would tense. And I felt so out of control and I was so exhausted.
Mhm,
And I actually reached out to a shaman I knew, and he was like, eat meat. And I'm like, well, I don't eat meat. Otherwise I totally would. And then like I just got this hit to go outside and put my bare feet on the ground
mhm.
and it stopped it immediately. I was like, why did I do this 6 hours ago? I was drained. So there's been instant after instant where the Shakti has increased in its capacity, and I've had to learn how to embody that next level. And my clients have had a similar experience.
Oh, wow. That's so fascinating because like I actually had to go eat meat after being plant-based for like 15 years last year because I got you have adrenal fatigue
Mm.
from being a people pleaser and in
Mm.
codependent relationships and in narcissistic relationship for so many years that I drained myself.
Mm.
And I went into a deli and I hadn't eaten meat, 15 years. And I'm just staring. And the woman behind the counter is like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, Yeah, not yet." because I'm trying to remember what I liked way back in the
Mm.
day because I hadn't eaten meat in so long. I'm like, this is like this is like a massive shift because I'd been gluten, dairy, sugar-free, plant-based, occasional salmon if Native Americans caught it, level
Mm.
that's a
Mhm.
whole different experience of energy. So finally I'm like, okay, I guess I'll get a filet mignon because I think that's like no fat and small piece and I can do that. My body was like, thank you. And I was like, hell
Mm.
was that? So it's very grounding. I don't really eat
Yes.
very much, but like every once in a while my body's like, I need meat now. And I'm like, okay. Like it's more intuitive. I was like putting on this barrier of like, no, I am
Yes.
plant-based. And when my body was like, no, that's not, we're gonna like change
Mhm.
it up for you. It was interesting because it shook me out of that construct of having to be a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's been 100% body led. I
Mm,
eat fish and seafood, and then I've tried to eat meat a couple of times and just haven't had a yes from my body. But then I take organs. So, my
yeah.
body really likes the organs.
Hmm.
And yeah, so just really listening to the body. I definitely do not believe in dogmatic,
Right.
structure of any kind. I mean, just even for the fact that we're all individuals, but
Right.
also in the process of our own individuality of moving and ebbing and flowing. And what does my body need right now? Not
Mhm.
yesterday or 3 months ago. I went raw vegan for a little while to heal my body because I got really sick, and it healed me, and I was super grateful for it. But wow, like I hope to never have to eat that way again.
I totally get that because and being able to listen is so important. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of the journey that you teach is, and I'm just jumping out, but like that ability to connect with the body and the intuitive wisdom that it carries. And as you've gone through this process of your Shakti being awakened more and more, how has that informed your ability to relate with yourself?
Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful question. I mean, my relationship with myself is completely different. The beauty of the Shakti and the process of the Shakti moving through the body out the crown and meeting with Shiva is divine union. And again, even though I had a spontaneous one, it was just the beginning. So that union of self, really understanding the different aspects of self and how they are all one, and simultaneously we can work with the polarity is different, and then bring them together and work with them one. So really deeply understanding and having awakened my authentic self and my unique genius,
Mhm.
and reclaiming my sexual power, like that's been just huge for me, because I was sexually molested at a very early age, and my sexual power was very quickly like reflected back to me as like not good.
Mhm.
So the Shakti has really just, I didn't really feel like I had much of a choice. She was like, we're waking up here. And yet, like the depth of the understanding of our power through the Shakti, through our sexual energy, it
Mhm.
it has transformed me into this like I'm gobsmacked by who we are as humans. I
Mhm.
mean, yes, as divine beings, of course, but as humans.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the innate power we have that we just like one aspect of myself, the people pleasing aspect that yeah, I am. I'm done with that. I'm just checking in. I'm like, I am really. Um, when I started calling my power back, so like I'm like a cinnamon roll. Like my energy to people who find me interesting is like a cinnamon roll, a warm cinnamon roll with all the gooey stuff on it. Like people
Mm,
like act like that to me, like I want this now. It's kind of
mm,
creepy.
mm,
But I've seen it like and throughout my life, like people will like come up and tell me their life story. I
mm,
don't care. But
mhm,
and as a result, because I make eye contact, because that's what I do, I have given my power away, I've given my energy away. And this has been decades and decades of that. And so as I've become more aware, I'm like, no, I'm pulling back all. of the energy that I have unconsciously or consciously given away to people that didn't reciprocate, I have more energy. I have
Mm.
way more self-compassion. I know what my limits are. I will not go past those limits. Like, for example, when I'm fully engaged with 2 podcasts in a day, I'm done for the day
Mhm.
because I'm fully engaged with you and we are having an energy exchange, and it's amazing and beautiful and I absolutely love it. And it's energy. So how do I replenish myself in ways that honors me and you and doesn't deplete me like I used to as a people pleaser?
Mm.
So I share this because I want to know how you have found your power coming into you more.
Yes, for me, I held a lot of energy of shame and inadequacy.
Mhm,
And so that inadequacy had me grasping for things outside of myself. That inadequacy had me really placing my worth and my value outside of myself, right?
mhm,
In my business, in money, in relationship.
mhm,
And in this process of reclaiming that for myself, really coming first and foremost to this sense of safety within my body, like that I am truly safe here now. No matter what's happening outside of myself, I am safe. And that relaxation, I am a deep believer of relaxation, which is different than rest. I
mhm,
always call it spiritual kung fu. You can be fully engaged and relaxed simultaneously.
mhm,
Relaxation is a deep presence without tension, right? And
mhm,
so having that relaxation in my body and really connecting into the worth of my creative power, just simply in my beingness and
mhm,
that which I desire to create, my pleasure, my playfulness. And that is all and inevitably what I need, but really sinking in to how that wants to be expressed, really enjoying that and validating myself through that versus those external aspects.
love that. And I love the exploration of what brings us joy as an individual because we're ancient in this iteration of ourselves. Our souls are ancient, and to see what wants to come through in any given moment that is an expression of joy is such a delight when you get out of that mindset of I have to know. And one of the things that I adore doing, you mentioned it, is grounding. As a kid, I loved laying on the ground and watching clouds go by.
Mm.
And it was like an hour, like multiple hours of just
Mhm.
watching it. And I didn't have no concept of time, so I didn't know how long it was, but I just loved it. So what are the some of the, what if do you see any things from your childhood or do you see things from previous lifetimes coming through that bring you joy?
I mean, Mother Gaia, nature has been a huge aspect for me. I grew up on 18 acres of land, and then behind our land, which was very much forest, we just had BLM land, just BLM forest, just acres and acres and hundreds of acres of it. And I had my horse and I'd get on my horse and my dog and my cat would follow behind and we would just go on adventures and I could
Amazing.
just spend all day by myself. I'm a
Mhm,
very independent individual. I really enjoy the time with myself, particularly myself and nature or myself and animals
mhm,
in that silence and that pure presence. And
mhm,
so that has been something that I have never I've made sure that that's always had space in my life and just that relationship with her. I mean, like honestly get emotional speaking because she has been there always, like no matter what I'm going through. If I'm
Mhm.
having a hard day, I can just go out into Mother Gaia and she just holds me energetically and just strips it all out of my energetic field. And I'm so grateful for that connection. I'm so grateful for where I chose to grow up and just continuing to foster that relationship with her.
I love that so much because I know exactly what you're talking about. It's so there is nothing that I have found that gives me that deep sense of peace that being in the presence of Mama Gaia does. She gifted me the opportunity this week to work on a sheep in England.
Mm,
And because I was so open to it, the sheep came into my heart space after I was done with the
mm,
session. I was brought to tears
mm,
with the gentleness of that sheep.
mm,
And what I heard after was like, that is your essence, is that gentleness.
mm.
So to really cultivate that more and more, and it's pretty much like be in nature,
Yeah.
help any animal that comes into your field. Um, and to allow the telepathy that I have that connects with them to just deepen my relationship with Mama Gaia and all the beings here, because there's way more animals than there are humans.
Mm,
The four-leggeds, the wings, and the fins are all they're all in communion and they're waiting for us to wake up.
mm. I completely agree.
Yeah. Have you seen your relationship with the animals shift as you've embodied this energy more?
I mean, massively, even though I would say I was so connected to them as a child, I rode horses for many, many years and went into performance with horses and, you know, went into performance. Like to me, that says it all. Maybe not so much to the audience, but there is this very forceful energy that
Mhm.
can come with that. I'm not saying it always does, but for whatever reason, I was given an instructor who was very forceful.
Oh,
That was part of, I guess, my process of learning that particular relationship with animals. And again, I get very emotional
yeah.
because she was very forceful with the animals and taught us to be forceful. And I started to distance myself from all of it because I was just like, something just, isn't right here, even though I have always adored horses. And then when I was 19, instead of going to university, which was my plan to do, higher self redirected me, and I ended up leaving the country and traveling the world and becoming a scuba diving instructor. So here I
Oh,
was immersed in water every single day with my
mm,
breath and just in these, beautiful Southeast Asia areas, with so much animal life and just really connecting back into just being with them,
mhm, mhm.
like no expectations from them. They didn't have any expectations from me. They were wild creatures. We just, descended down and they were there or they weren't there, and just really coming back into that with them. And then as I came back, I started working with horses again. And I just really had the intention of just like, I'm not going to enter this space again with
Mhm.
that energy from that trainer, and became the physical therapist and then started healing. And similar to what you said, just really feeling, my God, when I would go work on these horses, who was getting the healing? I don't know. Most of I was like, they were getting healing. I was getting
Right.
healing.
Mhm.
And, the depth of their consciousness and their wisdom and like
Ah,
really seeing them on a whole nother level, specifically horses. They've been
yeah.
massive teachers for me throughout my life. And, I think one of the primary things that I love, like about my dog and about these creatures, is like just their pure innocence and like really receiving that reflection back from them so that I can could reestablish that in myself.
Mm. I love that you said that way because it's so transcendent when we allow ourselves the opportunity to have that level of interaction with them. And yeah, it's just it's just magical. And I'm tuning in to hear the question that's trying to come through. So just give me a second. So as the Shakti has shown up in your life more and more, how have you seen your relationships shift with family members?
Such a wonderful question. Yeah, I was always a little bit estranged from my family. Just I don't know necessarily why. We hung out together, but even from quite a young age, my family called me an alien because I just always did things differently than they did, and then it, as I moved away, and the kind of the space grew wider, and as I went into my spiritual awakening and evolution, this space grew wider, and initially it was very challenging. I, had a husband with children, and I got a divorce, and my parents didn't like that. They very much liked my husband, who I adore deeply as a person. And there was a lot of friction. And that was after my Kundalini awakening. And, I was really told by higher self to own my expression, speak to them, speak clearly with the best that I could with conviction. And I had, always rebelled a little bit, but I had always kind of held my tongue with my parents, hadn't
Mhm.
really spoken up to them, to my mother. And I had to do that, and at first there was just a lot of kickback, and I was okay, you're welcome to kick back. You're welcome to think what you want to think. This is what I need to do for myself.
Right.
And then through that process, some more softening and some more softening. And um, 2 years ago, I was working in my higher self was guiding me into my cervix, where I was holding a lot of shame,
Ooh.
and the Shakti was working in my cervix. And this was going on for about 2 weeks or so that I was working in it daily.
Mhm.
And I saw parallel realities where, or past life is also known as, or my mother and I had
Mhm.
shared some lives together. And one of them, we'd been sex slaves together, just as
Oh, wow.
women. She wasn't my mother. We weren't related.
Right.
And that was in my cervix. And so I'm in there like
Wow.
working on it. And my father calls me in the middle of it.
Oh,
It's
that's
like two
amazing.
weeks. And he
Yeah.
goes, yeah, I need to tell you something. And at this point I was talking to my parents here and there. We have a good relationship at this point, but I don't
Mhm.
speak to them like weekly or anything
Right,
like
right,
that.
right, right.
And he goes, yeah, your mother has been diagnosed with cervical cancer. And I was like,
Oh my God.
yeah, I
That's
am not
crazy.
surprised, to be
Yeah,
honest, because I know exactly what's going on.
right.
And it was I needed to finish. My dad was like freaking out, because this is a very aggressive cancer, and of course what the doctors say and all of that. And he's like, you guys need to come visit her. And I'm like, okay, wait a second here, like I'm in the middle of something that needs to be resolved
Yeah, yeah.
before I come there.
Right,
But I will come as soon as I get the intuitive hit to come.
right,
And like, I'm here for you, dad. Like, I understand your fear. I'm
right.
feeling what you're feeling.
Mhm.
And they heard me. He heard me. And they understood. And then I moved through it, and then I went, and there was just a really beautiful healing that happened with
Mm.
her and me in that space. And I told her what I was seeing in the energies and everything that was happening. I
Oh, that's
do not
awesome.
hide anything from them anymore.
Mhm.
And yeah, and so she's in remission now.
Beautiful.
And yeah, so our relationship has really, really, really transformed. And, this is what it always like drops my jaw. I tell this to my clients all the time because I work with a lot of women who have partners. I work with women who are trying to conceive babies, and I work with women and men, but, who have family issues or, whatever it is. And I'm like, just focus on yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times I have watched it all transform. And
Mm,
sure enough, it does. I had a client the other day. We went into session, we went into past lives. Her daughter, she's trying to conceive. She has a 20-year-old daughter who was on drugs and hasn't spoken to her, has been really nasty towards her. She
yeah.
feels really disconnected. We went into past lives, healing all this energy. Like 2 days later, she's like, "You won't believe it. My daughter is like being so loving to me, showed
Wow.
up, was like apologizing, like all this energy." And every time it happens, I'm just like, wow, because
Yeah.
that is how powerful we truly are. And I always have this belief that there are no others, it is all a reflection. And when we focus on ourselves and we take that time to heal, those people show up differently or they leave.
Yeah. I feel that so keenly because like one of the things I love is past lives. I don't they'll come in for sessions on occasion, and it's always trippy. I usually get epigenetic things, but on occasion it's past lives. And for me, when I've had past life stuff, I'm like, I had this one instance where I was in France. I was a healer with a friend that was doing the session, which was really wild. And we go into Paris at a time when healers weren't allowed. And I got set up and I got caught. And there was a gentleman in my life who I've had a very, very deep energetic connection with. He was a magistrate that condemned me to be burned at the stake. And I ended up healing it. I took an herb to like make me not feel the pain of the flames. And I took another herb to keep me conscious so I could stare at like embody my divine feminine energy. So I was able to look him in the eyes as the flames were licking up on me. And then I passed out after it. Like a month later, he could not handle being in my presence anymore
Hmm.
at all. He tried, but he could not do it. And I was like, this is so interesting. Cause like, I'm like, hey, I healed this. Like, this is great because like now we don't have this energy between us. It's like,
Yes.
I can't, like, it was just wild because, it was just something that I needed to heal. And that's another thing that I want to bring in is like when we place something outside of ourselves, like, oh, that person is done, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that person just really just pressed something within me for me to see. They didn't do anything wrong. They just showed me something within me that I think is wrong within myself.
Yes, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
so phenomenal. It's so powerful.
And to be able to offer those gifts to others who are open to receive it because like I have to ask, I'm so curious, like what types of services do you offer to your clients is because clients because I love that you bring through I love that you're present with I had my uterus talk to me a couple years ago and she was pissed because I was guided not to have children. And that was my higher self telling me that. And she was like, you didn't have children. I'm like, I was guided not to. She's like, well, that doesn't mean that makes me happy. And I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm sorry. And like it was a big presence of being with that. And so how does that show up for you and with your clients, like talking to different aspects of your body, and the messages that they have?
Yeah,
And
I'm all about talking to the body. I mean, everything is in the body. So, one thing I do is I help people to create.
mm,
So, that's anything that they want in their life, but it's also I help women to conceive because that is very much a part of the creative process. And one of my loves is, really helping women to reconnect to their womb. There's so much beauty and power there. I mean, like it's an organ that brings ethereal energy and turns it into physical life. Like it's so effing magical.
Yeah.
And, we've just been like, oh, it's this thing in my body. And then with our bleeds, our menstrual cycles, we've been like, what a pain in the butt when it's all of this power and this, connection to the ebb and flow and the rhythm of our creative life force energy. So I love connecting women to that. And, when they start connecting to the womb, it is so funny because she has so much to say. And, I also connect them to the babies that want to come in,
Mhm.
because when a woman feels very strongly that she's supposed to be a mother, I full-heartedly believe that 100%. And, I've connected many times to the souls of these beings, and they're just so much fun to talk to.
Oh,
And
I
so
love
we'll
that.
bring them in, and they will just tell us exactly what needs to happen. They'll tell us what they need, and even sometimes when it's going to happen. And it's such a beautiful energy to connect with. But it's
Ah,
it's it's so transformational, right? Because even women who are trying to conceive, connecting to their womb, connecting to their cycles, connecting to their fem power goes so far beyond just conception. It changes
ah.
their lives
Mhm,
radically. So
mhm.
it's like I get to use the portal of like, hey, I'm trying to get pregnant. Just like, fantastic. Come in here and like, let me transform your reality. Like that lights me up.
Oh my God, I love that so much. Because like we don't think about these things. Like we haven't been taught like how powerful like the creation of our wombs are and like how like just how freaking amazing our bodies are.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
to just honor that and celebrate it and marvel. Like, when we were little and then we saw our hands for the first time, it was like, what is this? You know? And maybe not do that all the time, but just like be aware of the awe
Mm.
of, wow, look at this thing that like it's
Mm.
magical and it's got like so many joints to it. It can move like this, like that level
Mm.
of awareness to every aspect of us. I don't know if that's where we're going, but like to be able to like really honor and love ourselves is the fact that you're helping people remember that
Mm.
is such a gift on this planet.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. And, women have we have these cycles. We have so much power that has been, the feminine hasn't truly been on our planet for over 5,000 years. Like I was on a podcast today with a man, and I was talking about the feminine. He's like, oh, I said the divine feminine. And I was like, oh yeah, my grandmother. And I was like,
Oh,
no, sweetheart. Your grandmother, I'm sure she was sweet and
that's
gorgeous
so
and so
sweet.
much. That
Yeah,
is not what I'm talking about at all.
sweet though. That's so sweet.
At all. Like the
Right.
femme is like, I mean, she is so wild and chaotic and crazy. And one of the things that's happened to me through this process is connecting to her in the act of sex. And
Mm,
really there's so much energy that women can access when we open up our orgasm. Like women
mm,
are phenomenal. Mary Magdalene used the orgasm and the creative life force energy to, charge Yeshua's Ka body so that he could go through that immenseness, that pain, that suffering. Like this is the access that women have through
mm,
our orgasm. And when you access those spaces in yourself, it is so raw and primordial. And I mean, like, I want to devour my man. I want to rip him apart. And it's so delicious and so satiating.
mhm,
And, it's like reconnecting to that part of ourselves
mhm.
wow. Like you're like, yeah, nobody can mess with me. Because I just found her. And she's insane. Like you want to watch out.
Yeah, I love that so much because like that's a part of us that we don't remember.
Yes.
It's like we've had all of these programs and belief systems that have been that we obviously when we came here to heal them and
Yeah.
find I have a long list of things that I came in to heal. I'm grateful I've healed most of them, thank God. But like just trying to unwind, like it's funny because like I hear, that one of the programs for women that are sick of being like the good girls, they're supposed to be wild. Well, I'm innately a water in the Chinese five elements. Like I'm like chill. I like to like snuggle in bed. I'm like, leave me alone. I want to be out in nature. That's my wild. Like, and it was when I'm in my water phase. And like the thought of me just like having one of those shoots where I'm like flowing in the air and like, but the wild isn't that, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Wild is like,
Exactly.
yeah, so like talk about that wild because I love that because that word has been distorted.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's so funny how humans, we take something and then we're like, oh, this is what it is. We project it into a person maybe who said, oh, I'm wild. Because that word used to really trigger me because I would see these women that I'm like, well, I'm not like that at all,
Right, right, right.
And so I guess I'm not wild. And then, it showed up for me in the sexual experiences, but it's just different for everybody. And really that it's just the feminine, and she is non-linear, and she is inexhaustible. Like there you can just continue to open up more and more and more and more to her, and just the other day, actually, I was in an ayahuasca ceremony where we were working with Kali, who's been one of my primary teachers in this life. And, Kali has taught me to consume energy. This is the power of the feminine, is we can just expand out and bring energy through and transmute. That's fucking wild, right? Like your wild is definitely unique to you, but it is this inexhaustible source of power. And
Mhm.
not power that we see in like the government, because that's all force. That's not power. Power is organic, it's self-serving to the one, to divinity. And so the feminine has that access, and she is simultaneously powerful and tender at the same breath and the same moment. And that's really the truth of her wildness, in my opinion. So that comes through each of us in its own way.
I love that you just articulated that way because a few months ago, I have a six shift BMW and I love taking corners at 60 miles an hour. I just do. And Kuan Yin is one of my guides. So like I have these moments where I'm like really like super present. When we had lilacs, I would just stick my nose in and sniff for like 2, 3 minutes just to fully embody the gorgeousness of the lilac.
Mm.
And for a long time, I was like, how can I just be that and take a corner at 60 miles an hour?
Mm. Mm.
That's all. You know what I mean? That's the all. That's the whole prism of me. To have that balance between that's my divine masculine, or actually it's my car that wants to take the corners. She has her own personality. Anyways. But like that aspect of me that loves hearing the acceleration, loves taking those corners and downshifting and all the fun things that car does, with the gentleness of sniffing or talking to a doe or feeling the energy of a sheep. Like it's all. And I think that's where we get that expansion into the feminine, is when we don't compartmentalize all those aspects that are the whole of us.
What a great example. I love driving fast around corners and downshift. I'm right there with you. And I love that example because that's a really great example. And, just the availability that we have so many different expressions. And again, it's really that polarity, right? We get to be the negative, we get to be the positive, we get to be where they meet, we get to swing to flow. And even as we're awakening the divine feminine on this planet, and everybody's talking about divine feminine, well, we also need our masculine and we also need our child because it's actually a trinity. And, we get to move and flow and be all of them and sometimes swing a little bit harder into one expression than the others and then flow back through. Like that is so much beauty of really the expression of breath, right? And how divinity breathes through us.
Mhm. Mm, I love that. Because when we remove those constructs of who we think we should be, then the play and the joy comes through. And it's that space that when we give ourselves the opportunity to cultivate it with permission to not judge, it's such a relief to the soul.
Mm. Yeah, I always say it feels like home.
Mhm.
There's an actual feeling of home in your body.
Yeah, definitely there is. And it's so when we go on this journey of the remembrance of who we are, when we get to that state of it's an intangible yet visceral experience. Because you can fully feel it, and yet we don't have language to describe it.
Which is again the feminine, the intangible, and the visceral, the
Yeah.
masculine, like the beautiful representation of where heaven meets earth, and the ethereal meets the physical. Yes.
Wow. Are you seeing, because I'm so curious, because I've been feeling it, the shifts in consciousness that are happening right now.
Yeah, they've been so rapid
Mhm.
and intense, which I love. Intense. So I feel like when I start using the word intense, like it's really intense. I'm like, bring on the intensity, like, yeah, I love it. So yeah, when I start being like, damn, this is intense, then
Uh,
yeah, we're definitely shifting just so rapid.
I'm noticing it. So I was in a Walmart today in Central, I'm outside of Salem, Oregon, and this woman who's a cashier, she had an amethyst crystal on her necklace, and I said, "Wow, this is really nice amethyst." Because I love looking for something to connect with someone. I
Mm.
compliment tattoos, I like hair color, whatever it is. I want to connect with a human being. And she said, "Oh yeah, like I love this thing too, and it broke my phone, and that was a sign from the universe because I was on my phone too much." I'm like, I
Yeah.
like I love that like somebody I would not have guessed. And that's not a judgment, it's just like,
Yeah.
she was aware of the fact, she's like, "Oh, no, this was a message from the universe, I was on my phone too much." I'm like, I love that, because like, it's just like, that seeing because it's been because you've been on this experience, I've been on this experience of a remembrance and awareness and integrating and embodiment, it's really nice to see others doing it too.
Absolutely. And, the fact that she just didn't say, oh, yeah, I think it's really pretty, right? Like she had some more depth to it than that. And I think that there's always, in this process, a level of trend. That didn't sound like trend, but just, with spirituality and awakening, there's this trend energy and it becomes cool and it becomes trendy. And it's also just part of it, right? Like I hear some people really bash that about the fact that that's happening. And yeah, but that also means that it's getting awareness, right? And if it starts off as a trend and people start to integrate it on a deeper level, then by all means, trend out, people. Like do it as much as you want because like I'm all for it. I'm not a
Yeah.
trend person at all, but if that's what people, are drawn to,
Like,
and if that's what starts the fire, then like, does
mm,
it really matter?
exactly. Like, and however we show up, like just honoring that, like just what is the like it's like an almost intuitive like talk about the crystal, talk about the tattoo, talk about
Hmm.
the thing that's like just gonna like
Yes.
because we're all in here and we're so used to not having others pay attention to us that when somebody actually goes out of their way and is like that thing I want to talk about that thing like that awakens
Yeah.
and that's a really beautiful thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm. I am so loving your energy, darling.
Same. I knew it right when we sat down.
Mm. Yeah. Mm. Okay, I'm being guided to ask the question because I want to talk to you offline. So, how can people find you?
Absolutely. So, Alara Sage, alarasage.com is my website, Instagram, Alara Sage, Facebook, Alara Sage. I also have a podcast called The Ecstatic Woman. And yeah, I always love to hear from people. I always love it when people reach out. So, I invite the audience to do so if they feel called.
Thank you, sister. Oh my goodness. I just adore you.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I want to thank you so much for the work you do in the world, for your beingness and all the light you're bringing to the planet. Thank you.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me and playing.
You are so welcome, sister.